Joining me now is David Pine. Let's do a check on where things are going, but particularly let's talk about the odd address today by President Trump to the room full of generals and admirals. I said on the radio today, I was very troubled by it because I don't think this is the way a president should be talking to generals and admirals. He's the commander in chief. He wants to talk like this to the American people, fine. If he wants to give his ideas, fine. Do you think Truman would have talked like this? Eisenhower? Do you think Ronald Reagan would have talked to generals like this? And you say, well, Brandon, why does it bother you? Because we cannot talk about the left politicizing the military, and then we turn around and do the same thing. When you walk in there as the commander in chief, he is in a different role, a very important constitutional role, and he needs to respect his audience. These are guys that cannot be involved in politics. Now, if they are involved in politics, they need to be fired. And I think some of them have been. But we cannot say, oh, politics on the left is a problem, but politics on the right is not. Now, the Constitution is not politics. It's the law of the land. That's different. That's the law. That's our organic founding document, one of many. But what I saw today was very troubling to me because I'm thinking this is not respecting the guys sitting there. Many of them have got to be extremely uncomfortable because they know what military code is. And then for 71 minutes, I had to count. He used the word I. He used the word I 89 times in that 71 minutes. He got off script. And I felt sorry for the men in the audience, and I felt sorry for him because it was like the uncle that comes to Thanksgiving that won't be quiet and goes off on a rabbit trail and dominates the whole dinner. And you're like, is he ever going to, get with the program and read the room? And people who have been longtime supporters of President Trump were texting me and emailing saying this is so cringy. Now, I understand the MAGA cult people won't get this, but I'm not talking to the MAGA cult. I'm talking to MAGA supporters, people who want to make America great again. And you and I can be discerning and want to make America great again and agree with the America First principles, of which many of us believed in long before Donald Trump even believed in. I'm going to profess them publicly. But I'm not going to be a cult member. When I see something I agree with, I say it. When I see something I disagree with, I say it. And I didn't agree with what I saw today. I didn't agree with the tone or the tenor and the things that were being said. I don't think you stand up there and trash the last president or the president before that or Barack Obama or Biden. Not because there aren't plenty of negative things you can say. It's not the time and the place. This is not how we build back the military. This is not how we have respect for the office of the presidency, our military leaders. It wasn't right. And my spirit was grieved and knew this is not appropriate. Am I talking about the entire speech? No. I'm talking about the rabbit trail, the the political talk. This is not a MAGA rally. He's the commander in chief. I wonder how David felt. I don't know because David and I have not discussed it. David Pine joins me now. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
You're former military, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm a former U.S. Army headquarters staff officer and combat arms officer.
Did you watch that speech today?
So I only caught part of it. I haven't had time to watch the whole thing. It was quite lengthy.
71 minutes.
Yeah. So I probably watched the first half or so. So I read the highlights. But I agree with a lot of what you said. Maybe not for the same reasons. I mean, it did seem like a pep rally, and that's not really, where you should be having it, because we want an apolitical, military officer corps, especially at the senior level with the generals. Certainly, it was very political under Biden, and Biden appointed a lot of his, DEI proponents to lead the military, and they're still there. Trump, I think, Hegseth and Trump will let go, up to 21, senior 3- and 4-star generals. But there's a lot of a lot more that need to be replaced. And that's become fairly typical. I think Obama did the same thing in replacing a lot of Bush generals. So I don't have a problem with that. He was pretty brash about it. He joked that anyone who wanted to could walk out, but you'll lose your stars.
In fact, let me play that clip. That's funny you brought that up.
The stars right off your uniform.
Yeah, we haven't rehearsed this, and I have that clip. You didn't know I had that clip ready to go, but you brought it up, and I have it. Here it is.
Thank you very much, Pete. Great job you're doing, too. Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Don't laugh. Don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank. There goes your future. But you just feel nice and loose, okay? Because we're all on the same team. And I was told that, sir, you won't hear a murmur in the room. I said, we got to loosen these guys up a little bit. So you just have a good time. But
okay, so he forgot. I guess he didn't notice they were standing, so someone told him to sit down. I found that interesting. Pete Hegseth said, everybody, you may be seated. He forgot to do that. I wonder, who are they all watching, by the way, to know to sit down? How did they know to all sit down at one time? Because it wasn't the president saying it. How did they know to sit down? I'm just curious. Do you have any idea?
Well, I'm sure Hegseth was sitting in the corner, or maybe the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane. But that's a good question. Is there some kind of military protocol, chief sitting up there, maybe a senior enlisted, at the top level, command sergeant major?
So when the chairman of Joint Chiefs sat down, then they all sat down too, then probably.
I would assume so, but I haven't been able to verify that.
I wonder if they had not done that, when they just stood for the whole speech.
Well, I mean, they're military officers, and they stand for their commander in chief. That would have been a little awkward to have them stand during the entire speech.
71 minutes, some of them start passing out. It's like, wow, it's a tough crowd.
Yeah, especially when they're our age, or maybe even a little older. I mean, there's some younger ones, 1 or 2 stars, I guess. But I haven't seen all of Trump's speech. I was actually more troubled with Hegseth's speech.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Secretary of War Hegseth, he talked a lot about of course the warrior ethos, esprit de corps, getting rid of all of our fat generals and admirals. Thought that was entertaining. Making sure that women can only serve if they're triathletes essentially, and can meet the highest male standards. I don't have as much of a problem with that. I mean, that seems reasonable for special forces, Rangers, combat roles. Because the requirements are pretty high, certainly of infantry, maybe not so much of armor, where you're not carrying a 90-pound rucksack on 10-mile force marches. But he talked a lot about that we need to be ready to fight wars, not just wars that we're forced into, but wars we choose to fight, implying that we have some more offensive wars in our future. We've already fought 2 offensive wars that Trump started in Yemen first, and then in Iran. And you and I have been talking about Trump and Netanyahu are likely to have another go at Iran, perhaps even before the year's over. So that may be coming up. We know that there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about Trump bombing Venezuela, perhaps a prelude to sending the Marines to take the Venezuelan capital of Caracas and install a U.S. puppet there. And that's something I'd welcome a lot more than fighting wars halfway across the globe, and certainly in Ukraine, Taiwan, Iran, the Middle East. Of course, the latest news is that Trump has appointed himself to be the de facto leader of Gaza under this new peace agreement. This is a little bit off topic, but as of yesterday, when he met with Netanyahu, that he would be the leader of this peace council, and essentially have be the chairman and perhaps indefinite governing partner in there, perhaps even after he leaves office. But I was most troubled by the way Hegseth talked about, we don't need to really do national defense anymore, because that's what we used to do. And now we're on offense all the time. We're going to win wars, not just wars of we're forced into, in other words, being attacked or, having to defend against, but the ones that we start ourselves. And that's just not what we signed up for when we voted for Trump. We voted for Trump because he was supposed to be a peace president. He was supposed to defend America. And ironically, that's what the official Hegseth National Defense Strategy does. Of course, it's been on his desk, rumored since late June. So he might be changing it radically to support his, the vision of the military that he stated today. But I'm hoping that that strategy is fully implemented, because if it is fully implemented, it would mean major troop withdrawals from Europe and the Middle East minimally, and even perhaps at least a freeze on deployment of forces in the East Asia and the Western Pacific, so that we can focus on homeland defense in terms of defense against super EMP attack. Finally starting to get those 100,000 PLA troops out of our country, which is the equivalent of 2 group armies of eight PLA divisions. That's a huge threat. And if we want to if we want to conquer Greenland, if we want to retake the Panama Canal and invade Venezuela, I mean that's a lot more reasonable and a lot more related to our vital national security interests than getting into all these other wars, and perhaps in Ukraine and Taiwan.
Well, here's one line that I found a little interesting today. President Trump said to the generals and admirals, here we go.
And General Kane, and all of the people that I've met that have been lifted up in rank. And we got many of them out of here, too, I'll be honest with you. Didn't like doing it, but we got many of you out of here because we weren't satisfied. We know everything about everybody.
We know everything. We weren't satisfied with some of you, got rid of them, which is fine. I mean, they're a lot more woke DEI. I'm glad they're gone. But I just thought that's an interesting line. We know everything. We know everything about you. Okay, everybody is on notice. Wow.
Yeah, Biden had political officers. He had old Soviet-style Zampolets where they were everyone's social media was monitored, and anyone who's right-wing or Trump supporters, was at danger of being, kicked out of the military. Maybe Trump's going to start that as well. I don't support that, but certainly at the top, I strongly support Hegseth's idea of firing, woke generals and Biden generals, certainly from the upper ranks. He set a goal of 20% cuts at the 4-star rank, and then 10% overall for the 80 generals and admirals we have. So that would be, or 800 rather. So it would be 80 generals that would be fired. Haven't seen it happen yet, but still holding out hope.
Okay, what's the latest on NATO before we let you go? Where are we at with this? Because he called out Putin in this speech today, too. Where are we at with this? What I think is already World War III that started, but where are we at with NATO and this evolving war?
Well, it's interesting, that he pointed out that, the nuclear threat. He talked about how he threatened Russia with, nuclear attack by deploying a couple of Ohio ballistic missile submarines close to Russian territory. I mean, we have those deployed in the Atlantic and Pacific at all times. So I don't think that. I don't think he really did anything in terms of redeploying any of our submarines, but he claims he did. But it's the very threats that he's making. He's threatening not only nuclear attack, he's threatening to give Tomahawk land attack missiles to Ukraine. We don't even have any to give. I mean, he's making all these threats that are the Russians have to understand or bluff and bluster, but it'd be more dangerous if they didn't, if they thought that he was serious, because a Tomahawk missile launched from Ukraine could range anywhere in European Russia all the way to the Ural Mountains. I mean, Putin has his nuclear command bunkers situated in the Ural Mountains, and those can't be penetrated by U.S. nuclear weapons because we don't have any of sufficient yield to do so. But the very idea that, we could give offensive intelligence to Ukraine and they could target Russian leadership or nuclear triad forces anywhere in European Russia is pretty disconcerting, and it's completely unnecessary. It's completely inconsistent with Trump's goal of wanting to, end the war in Ukraine that he pledged to do 51 different times during his presidential campaign. So in terms of NATO, we've had these Russian drone incursions. Those aren't attacks. I mean, those are reconnaissance unarmed drones that entered Polish airspace, 19 of them. One entered into Romanian airspace. Then there was Russian reconnaissance aircraft that buzzed, I guess, 3 of them that buzzed a German frigate in the Baltic. Not a big deal. I mean, those are, not huge deals. I think we had a Russian bomber that came within almost 200 miles of Alaska. That's pretty routine, unfortunately. I mean, that just happens on a pretty frequent basis. And it's just because tensions are so high, that thanks to Trump's decision to escalate Biden's war in Ukraine, that these are even issues. Otherwise, we see it as kind of routine Cold War tactics.
Yep. In fact, here he is talking about the submarines. Listen to this.
Threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. Number one, you can't detect it. There's no way. We're 25 years ahead of Russia and China in submarines. Russia's actually second in submarines. China's.
Okay, can I stop there? Because I'm not sure that's true. Because I remember reporting on the air that our government could not track a Russian sub and find it for several weeks. I went and looked it up. Back in 2018, there was reportedly a Russian submarine, the ASH, A-S-H submarines, they're stealth, and that for a few weeks, they couldn't find it. For several weeks, our military couldn't find it. So I'm not buying. I know his job as commander-in-chief is to tell everybody how great and powerful we're the best military. But Dr. Peter Vincent Pry sat at this desk, as you know, talking about all the 5th and 6th generation technology that Russia and China have. We have generals with 4 stars on their shoulder testifying to Congress saying, we don't have an answer to that yet, but we're working on it. So I would caution the American people into buying propaganda that lets you believe that we are bigger and better than Russia and China and they wouldn't dare mess with us. Don't buy that lie. He has no choice to say it, I guess, because he's the commander in chief, but it's not true. Am I right, David?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, Trump unfortunately made a number of misleading statements about Russia's nuclear capabilities and our own nuclear capabilities, starting with what you mentioned about, saying we're 25 years ahead of Russia in submarine technology. I mean, they have, as you mentioned, they have Yasin and Yasin-M nuclear cruise missile submarines that can launch Zircon hypersonic missiles that could take out DC in 5 minutes from a distance of 200 miles. And we can't even detect those. The U.S. Navy doesn't have the ability to detect them because they use either non-magnetic or low magnetic hulls. So we can't get a radar, a sonar signature on those submarines. So, we have a huge gap in terms of our submarine detection capabilities, especially in the capital region, in the Atlantic. In fact, I shared with you, I think a couple of years ago that, former Assistant Secretary of Defense Frank Gaffney informed me and some other folks on a call that he was told in 2021 that a Russian submarine entered Chesapeake Bay, which is, again, right by Washington, D.C., and had to be chased out of the bay by U.S. Missile frigates and patrol craft. So that Chesapeake Bay is 44 feet deep. So certainly we can detect that, but we can't detect Yasin submarines that are deep underwater that can fire take out DC and potentially all 3 nuclear footballs at the same time, leaving us without launch control of our nuclear arsenal for a matter of days, according to Colonel Rob Maness. Now, Trump also stated that the U.S. has the biggest, the best, the most powerful nuclear arsenal on the planet. Everyone knows that's false. He He also stated that he rebuilt our nuclear arsenal. I went back and looked up when he first said that. He was briefed on the size of our nuclear arsenal on July 20th, 2017, about 6 months after he came to office. And at that time, he was so aghast at how our nuclear arsenal had shrunk from 32,000 warheads to just 2,285 operational warheads today. He said he wanted to increase the size of our nuclear arsenal by 10 times. And then, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson called him a moron. And that was reported in October of that year. And he so subsequently walked that back. But it was just 2 weeks after that meeting that he claimed that he'd massively increased the size of our nuclear arsenal, when in fact he decreased it during his presidency by 11 ICBMs under previous Obama New START treaty implementation plans. So unfortunately, Trump does like to exaggerate. He kind of goes off the rails. He likes to pretend that the U.S. is the biggest bully in the block, as Colin Powell said that we wanted to be during the Iraq War, to intimidate everyone else, to kind of be the unipolar power, superpower, and that's just not the case anymore. Russia and China overmatch us individually in terms of nuclear and conventional military power. Russia has more active duty forces than the U.S. today. Thanks to our decision to go to, wage this proxy war with them over Ukraine's, border status. So we just live in a very different world, and it would be really helpful if President Trump were a lot more realistic about the limits of U.S. military power, instead of going off about how we can invade everyone we want and get away with it.
Does he even know the truth? Has he been told things that aren't true? Is it possible he's been told things aren't true? He believes these things, which is how the neocons get him to go out there and poke a stick in Putin's eye, and the Iranians and North Korea and the rest of these characters, some of them who are in our hemisphere. I mean, I remember one of the commanders for Southcom or whatever it was, he was warning a panel of Congress, China's in our backyard. They're in our backyard, okay? Are there missiles? Does Iran have missiles in Venezuela? There are reasons to believe they have. We've been talking about it since 2010. But they certainly have terrorists here. At one time they had 5,000 man-pads, shoulder-launched rockets that were missing. And they went through hyperinflation over there, and literally the middle class is eating out of dumpsters. We have videos of it. Don't you think some of those things are being sold off in the black market by the military not being paid? Does he know these things? Does the commander-in-chief even know what I just said about 5,000 man-pads floating around? Or has he been told things by the neocons around him, and therefore he believes it, and he goes out and says the things he does because he thinks I have the ability to back it up when he doesn't? Are they lying to him, you think, and playing him?
Yeah, they absolutely are. I wrote an article about that. I think it was just a week after he announced, Rubio and Ratcliffe and some of the other bad actors to be on his cabinet. As Secretary of State, CIA Director, of course, Keith Kellogg as Special Envoy to Ukraine, and others that have provided him with misinformation that have caused him to want to keep fighting the war in Ukraine, to bomb Iran. Both of those were against U.S. interests, put us at great risk in terms of the U.S. homeland being attacked catastrophically, most likely by a massive cyber attack and counter space attack. In terms of Venezuela, I mean, Venezuela's military capabilities are pretty limited. But it is very possible, as you mentioned, that both Cuba and Venezuela could have nuclear missiles already in place.
Or Iran.
Or something of that nature. And Iran absolutely has nuclear missiles. They may not be able to range the U.S. with a nuclear missile, but they can range the U.S. with a super EMP satellite.
Could they have put some in Iran, as has been talked about? Because they've had flights coming out of Iran into Venezuela for years.
Yeah, Iran could certainly have moved MRBMs to Venezuela. It would take more than, I think, an MRBM to they could probably range Florida with an MRBM, but more likely they would have either Club K supersonic missiles that could be fired from a ship, or else any other Iranian MRBM. All of their missiles are on transporter erectors. They're mobile missiles. The only mobile missile I'm aware of that we have in our arsenal is the Typhoon missile erector system that can fire TLAM missiles, Tomahawk missiles that are ground launched, as well as modified SM-6, missiles which are fired from U.S. Navy ships. So our enemies have lots of mobile missiles. All of Iran's missiles are mobile, but they have some of their best missiles. Their MRBMs and IRBMs are in underground, nuclear silos, missile silos that we can't really touch from the air. So, Iran is a much greater threat than it's been presented to be, and we're just lucky that Trump and Iran came to an agreement to not escalate any higher than they did with the nuclear sites that were hit by the U.S. and had moderate damage.
Well, very interesting days, that's for sure. But we have to have clear minds, and we have to call it the way we see it. And that doesn't mean I don't support President Trump in a lot of ways and what he's doing. But where I don't agree, or where I think it's troublesome or not good for the ability to be consistent, we don't want to see the left politicize the military. We don't see the right do it. And I want the president to be respected by his generals and commanders. And I have to think there was a group of them out there watching this today going, this is really weird. And when he says things that aren't true militarily, there are guys sitting in that room that know far more about the facts and knew for a fact the commander-in-chief was standing there revealing to all of the rest of the commanders, our generals and admirals, his extreme ignorance on reality. That's not good for us as Americans. Am I right?
Yeah, you're totally right. We need presidents that are well informed, and when they're fed misinformation, when President Trump's fed misinformation, that hurts U.S. national security. It causes him to make forced errors that he otherwise could avert, and that's why the old axiom "personnel is policy" is so true. When he appoints neocons to lead U.S. foreign policy and national security policy, whether it's Marco Rubio or Mike Waltz, then Marco Rubio now controls both the Department of State and the National Security Council. He's dual-hatted like Henry Kissinger. And that would be a good thing if it was someone like J.D. Vance or maybe even Pete Hegseth, someone who's, might say dumb things like Hegseth sometimes do, but actually doesn't want us to get involved with Russia and Ukraine in terms of a war, doesn't want us to go to war with Iran, thinks that maybe, while he talks about fighting new wars, maybe it's a little gun shy with actually starting with countries that can shoot back at us, with nuclear super EMP weapons. Venezuela, of course, likely doesn't have that, although they could, as we discussed, they could have, Iranian, Russian, or Chinese nuclear missiles that could be deployed there. I tend to think they likely don't have that, but certainly it's possible. dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. As always, David, thank you for your national security briefings you bring to us. Thanks, Brandon. Always a pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.